You're definitely going to be shocked by what happened to this man. He was a slave, became a Roman centurion, something not allowed for a slave. Years later he retired and, in the end, went back to being a slave. The name of this man was Claudius Pacatus, and we're going to understand how he managed to do something impossible under Roman law and why, years later, he went back to being a slave. So, let's get into the video. Everything we know about Claudius Pacatus comes from the work Roman History, Book 67, Chapter 13, by the historian Cassius Dio. We don't know if Pacatus was the son of a slave woman or if he became a slave later in adulthood. What we do know is that he lived in the 1st century CE and was possibly from a region far from the hills and plains of Italy, perhaps in the far north of the Italian peninsula, or in some lesser-known province of the empire. Pacatus learned to live under the harshness of Roman discipline. Exhausting tasks, severe orders, and physical punishments were part of his daily routine. But while other slaves accepted the fate imposed on them, Pacatus secretly harbored one desire: freedom. Although there are no precise records of this, we can assume that Claudius's life was marked by constant work. He may have carried water, hauled sacks of grain, and helped with field work, as well as performing more delicate services for his master. However, it is likely that he stood out not only for his strength, but also for his cunning. Perhaps he studied the guards' movements, learned shortcuts, and figured out how to take advantage of small opportunities, as many clever slaves did to gain some benefit or escape punishments. Some historians and scholars suggest that Claudius Pacatus may have taken advantage of a journey ordered by his owner as an opportunity to escape. In this reconstruction, it is quite possible that he noticed moments of distraction among the guards and found a secluded stretch of road surrounded by woods or mountains, ideal for hiding. Escaping slavery was an extreme act, risky and often punishable by death. Even so, Pacatus was willing to face those risks. It was then that he decided to flee toward Rome, the great city that offered him the chance to live as an anonymous man and start life from scratch. After arriving in Rome, Claudius Pacatus probably found the city both fascinating and intimidating. In the 1st century, Rome was a huge urban center, full of people from all parts of the empire, chaotic markets, temples, and very busy streets. For a fugitive coming from a distant region, the city offered anonymity, but also countless challenges: surviving in a hostile environment, avoiding capture as a runaway slave, and finding ways to support himself. It's possible to imagine that, in the first days, Claudius blended into the crowd, taking odd jobs and helping merchants or craftsmen. In the 60s and 70s CE, the Roman Empire faced increasingly complex and intense military challenges, requiring a significant increase in the recruitment of soldiers. Two events in particular marked this need: the Jewish War, 66 to 73 CE, and the campaigns in Britannia. This combination of siege warfare, guerrilla fighting, and campaigns in hostile territories created enormous pressure on the Roman military system, leading to increasingly intense recruitment. The legions needed more soldiers, and this scenario was the perfect opportunity for someone like Claudius Pacatus. Although slaves were not officially accepted into the legions, foreigners without citizenship could, under certain circumstances, enlist as volunteers. It is likely that Claudius volunteered as an auxiliary soldier, perhaps initially in support roles or logistical functions. Although we do not know exactly in which campaign or legion Claudius served, it is possible that he was assigned to regions where the need for soldiers was greatest, in an area far from the imperial capital. After joining the Roman army, Claudius Pacatus probably began his career as a common soldier integrated into a legion. For someone who had been a slave and had fled from his former master, this first step represented an opportunity to rebuild his life, gain independence, and prove himself worthy in an extremely demanding environment. The daily life of a rank-and-file soldier was intense and often brutal. Physical training, long marches, military engineering work, and direct combat were part of the routine. On distant campaigns, such as in the Jewish War or in the campaigns in Britannia, the demands were even greater. Over time, Pacatus began to stand out for his skill in combat and his discipline, drawing the attention of the legion's officers. In the Roman army, individual talents were often recognized, especially when a soldier proved capable of keeping calm under pressure, inspiring his comrades, and carrying out difficult orders. This recognition could lead to gradual promotions, from a common soldier to positions such as optio, assistant to the centurion, and eventually to the rank of centurion. According to Cassius Dio, Pacatus managed not only to survive the harsh demands of military service, but also to distinguish himself so significantly that he rose to the position of centurion. How he managed this is something we will never know. One possibility is that Pacatus stood out for his bravery in a decisive battle. In Roman campaigns, ordinary soldiers had the chance to demonstrate extraordinary courage. If Pacatus had put himself on the front line, leading bold attacks or rescuing comrades under heavy enemy fire, he could have caught the attention of his superiors. Another possible hypothesis involves the death or incapacitation of existing centurions. The Roman army suffered many casualties in prolonged campaigns, and centurions were often killed or wounded in battle. In such circumstances, it was necessary to replace leaders quickly, and competent soldiers who demonstrated command ability could be promoted to fill the gap. Pacatus, thanks to his courage, discipline, and skill in combat situations, could have been chosen to take command of a vacant century. In any case, Pacatus achieved an incredible feat, something no one had managed up to that point: a runaway slave becoming a centurion. After rising to the rank of centurion, Claudius Pacatus entered the most stable and consolidated phase of his military career. During the period in which he served as centurion, Pacatus likely took part in several military campaigns far from Rome, such as those that took place in the final decades of the 1st century CE, including operations in Britannia and in the eastern provinces, where the Roman army faced both local revolts and invasions by neighboring peoples. In terms of pay, Pacatus received a salary far higher than that of an ordinary legionary. In the 1st century CE, centurions could receive around 15 times the pay of a line soldier. In addition to his salary, Pacatus was also entitled to a larger share of the spoils of war. Whenever the legion conquered territories or defeated enemies, he received a proportionally greater portion of the loot, which could include money, slaves, animals, land, or valuable objects. In 93 CE, as recorded by Cassius Dio in his work, Pacatus had already officially retired from active service. He held the title of veteran centurion, which conferred certain privileges, such as a pension or property granted by the Roman state, depending on the military legislation of the time. One of the greatest privileges Pacatus received was land. As a centurion, he was entitled to an area of land approximately twice the size of what was granted to an ordinary legionary. Another benefit was Roman citizenship. For Pacatus, whose origin was humble and possibly far from Rome, citizenship meant full legal rights, judicial protection, and the opportunity to participate in civic life. But Pacatus could hardly have imagined that he was about to lose everything he had achieved over years as a Roman soldier. All of this because of the mistake he'd made when he was younger, and that almost no one knew about. He was still a runaway slave. And the year 93 CE would mark a dramatic turning point in the life of Claudius Pacatus. The past he believed he had left behind came to light in an unexpected way. Someone, somehow, recognized Pacatus as the runaway slave who had escaped years earlier. For Pacatus, this revelation must have been a profound shock, almost impossible to take in. Despite all the time, effort, and bravery he had shown in military campaigns, Roman law still saw him technically as the property of his former master. The news that Pacatus was a runaway slave spread quickly and soon reached the ears of Domitian, who was the Roman emperor at the time. Domitian knew of Pacatus's remarkable trajectory and the outstanding service he had rendered to the empire. This recognition was crucial for the fate of the retired centurion. Although Pacatus had committed, in the eyes of Roman law, the crime of fleeing slavery, Domitian chose to spare his life. The emperor recognized that punishing Pacatus with death would mean wasting a talent that had faithfully served Rome in long and dangerous campaigns. However, even with imperial clemency, the resolution of Pacatus's case did not bring complete freedom. Domitian decided to return him to his original master, ensuring that he would spend the rest of his days as a slave. Imagine what it was like for Pacatus to lose everything he had earned over years. Every medal, every honor, and every bit of respect he had gained among his soldiers and officers meant nothing in the face of Roman law. Pacatus, who was used to leading men, making strategic decisions, and being listened to with respect, would now be forced once again to obey orders and live under the authority of someone who, in theory, should no longer have any power over him. But tell me in the comments what you think. Do you believe what happened to Pacatus was fair? Or should Domitian not have returned him to his former owner? Leave your opinion in the comments, and if you liked this video, leave your like and subscribe to our channel.